Back in the early 2000s, America didn't get richer. Jobs stayed boring, paychecks stayed skinny, but houses? Houses started waking up rich. People checked their walls like stock prices. Babe, our house just made more money than I did this year. No raise, no bonus, just a number on a screen, acting like a miracle. And nobody noticed this. That rich feeling was quietly loading a gun. No noise, no warning, just contracts and smiles. Saturday morning, 2002. A quiet street that isn't quiet anymore. Cars everywhere. Coffee cups. Kids bored on the sidewalk. A line just to look at a house. A couple whispers. We didn't get a raise. But look at this place. We're moving up. What they really fear? Being the only renters left at the party. Their dream isn't being rich. It's not being embarrassed. They haven't bought anything yet. But in their heads, they're already acting like they got promoted as people. Question hanging in the air. If you feel richer before you buy anything, who exactly is giving you that feeling? After the dot-com crash, after the September 11th attacks, America was scared. So the Fed started cutting rates. Again and again, from about 6.5% down to around 1.75%. Borrowing suddenly felt like cheating. Banks stopped sounding like banks. They sounded like your dumb friend at 2 a.m. Bro, why wait? Why rent? Buy now before you miss it. America heard one clear sound. Cheap money. And cheap money always whispers the same lie. Take more. It's fine. Question. If borrowing feels this good, who's going to feel bad later? Small bank office. Buzzing lights. Carpet that's seen too many dreams die quietly. A construction worker sits across from a loan officer. He says, I just don't want my kids growing up in a place that looks temporary. What he means, I don't want to look like I failed. The loan officer smiles like a dentist. Don't worry. We can start you real low, real easy. He doesn't say. It won't stay low. The man signs. Skims, misses the scary parts like everyone does. Outside, a neighbor yells, Congrats. Renting is just paying someone else's mortgage, man. He laughs. Because laughing is cheaper than admitting you're terrified. A week later, for sale signs everywhere. And somehow, every one of them says, sold too fast. One neighbor brags, bought at 180. Now it's worth 230. Another says, I didn't fix anything. It just went up. Nobody talks about jobs anymore. They talk about houses, like scratch-off tickets. People stopped asking, can I afford this? They started asking, how much can I get away with? Different cities. Same dream. Same fear. Not fear of being poor. Fear of being the only one who didn't get rich. And when fear dresses like opportunity, it's hard to tell which one you're shaking hands with. Let me ask you, have you ever bought something, not because you needed it, but because it made you feel safer? Bigger place, better car, more stuff. Not for happiness? For quiet? If yes, you're already in this story. By 2002, money was cheap. Fear was quiet. Hope was loud. People didn't feel rich because they earned more. They felt rich because a number kept rising. And when a number makes you feel rich, you stop asking where it came from. You stop asking who's paying. You stop asking how long it lasts. You just enjoy the feeling. And every bubble in history starts the same way. Not with greed, but with a very innocent sentence. I just want to feel safe. And for a while, that feeling was enough. But when enough people chase the same feeling, it stops being comfort. It starts being a competition. By 2003, feeling safe wasn't a feeling anymore. It was a game. And banks didn't sound like banks. They sounded like people who were tired of saying no. In Riverside, California, Linda sat in a small office with a fake plant and a carpet that had heard too many dreams. She said it straight. I wait tables. I make about $40,000 a year. The loan officer tapped his keyboard, glanced at the screen, and said, You qualify for $500,000. Linda laughed. 500 Or 50? 500? She leaned back, nervous now. But what if I can't pay later? He smiled, like he'd said this all day. Then we sell the house. It'll be worth more by then. You still win. Linda stared at the papers. So there's no bad ending. Not in this market. And just like that, she signed a debt bigger than anything she had ever touched, because she was promised that even failing would feel like winning. In Phoenix, at a bar, a guy named Rick announced, "They approved me for $480. Someone asked, "What do you do?" Rick shrugged. "Does it matter?" They said yes. That's when people stopped bragging about salaries. They bragged about approval limits. By 2004, almost 1 out of every 4 new mortgages was going to people banks used to call too risky, no perfect credit. No big savings, just a pen and a promise, and the promise sounded like this: if anything goes wrong, it won't really go wrong. Open houses stopped feeling like tours. They felt like street fights. Cars on both sides of the road, agents talking fast, buyers talking faster. A husband whispered, "If we don't buy today, we're idiots," his wife said. "But we can't afford this." He smiled like he'd cracked the code. "We don't need to. We just need to sell it later." One guy said, "I bought this house this morning." Someone asked, "You live here?" He said, "No, I just didn't want anyone else to have it." Another guy added, "I don't even like houses. I just like watching the number." That was the mood. Around then, America quietly changed its favorite sport. People stopped asking, "Did you watch the game last night?" They started asking, "Did you check your house price this morning?" At work, nobody talked about deadlines. They talked about listings. At bars, nobody argued about football. They argued about square footage. On Sundays, families didn't go to stadiums. They drove to open houses. And instead of cheering for touchdowns, they cheered for price updates. Up $3,000, Nice Mine went up 5. That was the new scoreboard. Zillow became more popular than ESPN. People refreshed house prices, like gamblers refreshed betting apps. One guy in Vegas said, "I don't need a job. My house works for me." Another laughed, "Same. I'm just killing time until it doubles." They didn't call it gambling. They called it being smart. Rick bought a house for $180. 3 months later, it was worth $230. Someone asked, "What did you fix?" Rick said nothing. But he didn't say, "I got lucky." He said, "I finally understand money." For a moment, nobody looked scared. Everyone just looked proud. People stopped saying, "I hope this lasts." They said, "This is just how it works now." They stopped seeing houses as places to live. They saw them as scratch tickets. And everyone was sure theirs was a winner. Here's the lie everyone started believing: if my house makes more than I do, then I must be doing something right. And once a whole country believes that nothing bad can happen, risk stops feeling dangerous. It starts feeling normal, which is exactly how the dumbest ideas start to sound like genius. And when everyone feels like a genius at the same time, the game stops being about living. It becomes about winning. By 2005, people weren't asking, "Where will we live?" They were asking, "How many can I get?" In Tampa, a guy named Carlos owned 3 houses. He lived in none of them. A friend asked, beer in hand, "So, which one is yours?" Carlos shrugged. "All of them or none of them. Depends on the price." Another guy laughed. "Living in your own house is kind of poor behavior," Carlos grinned. "Why waste a house on living byways when you can use it for winning?" In 2005, about 28% of homes were bought just to flip. Another 12% were bought and left empty. So people didn't ask, "Can I live here?" They asked, "How fast can I dump it on someone else?" At night, whole streets went dark. No lights, no families, just houses waiting to be sold again. Not homes, just price tags with doors. Open houses stopped feeling like house tours. They felt like ticket booths. Lines down the street. People staring at phones. Nobody touching walls. Nobody opening cabinets. Just whispering. "How fast can this go up?" one guy in line said. "I haven't even seen the inside yet." Someone asked, "Then why are you buying it?" He pointed behind him. "Because 3 people back there want it. A woman bought a house," without opening the door. She said, "I don't need to see it. Someone else will." A husband told his wife, "We don't need this house." She said, "We don't need to. We just need to own it." Someone laughed. If one house makes you rich, imagine 5. And suddenly, houses weren't homes. They were scratch tickets with roofs. Everyone felt rich on paper. Everyone felt smart in their head. But nobody could point to the cash. Nobody liked this question. If everyone is rich on paper, who's actually holding the cash? Around that time, everyone started saying the same thing. Houses never go down. You didn't argue with it. You repeated it. From 2001 to 2005, home prices jumped almost 45% after inflation. So people stopped saying maybe. They said, obviously. At a dinner party, one guy said, "I don't get it. What if prices fall?" The table went quiet. Then someone laughed, "Fall? What is this? A movie?" Another added, "Relax. Houses don't do that." They didn't answer him. They erased him. Doubt became embarrassing. Belief became cool. If you questioned the bubble, you sounded broke. Or worse, boring. Rick bought a house for $180. 3 months later, it was worth $230. Someone said, "You got lucky." Rick smiled. "No, I finally understand money. Like money was a language." And he was suddenly fluent. Luck stopped being called luck. It started being called intelligence. People didn't say, "I hope this lasts." They said, "This is just how it works now." Let me ask you something. Have you ever believed something, not because it made sense, but because everyone else believed it? Stocks, crypto, jobs, even relationships. People didn't follow logic. They followed the crowd, not because they checked, because they didn't want to be alone. If yes, you've been in a bubble before. By 2005, people didn't feel lucky anymore. They felt chosen. They didn't feel rich because they earned. They felt rich because they believed. Every bubble has a quiet moment like this. Not when people are greedy, but when everyone is sure they're smarter than the rest. Because at that point, no one is watching the floor anymore. They're just enjoying the view while standing on glass. And glass doesn't always shatter in one loud moment. Sometimes, it just starts making a strange sound under your feet. Early 2006. In a lot of US cities, house prices hit their top. January, February, and then it just stalled. Not crashing, not blowing up, just stuck. Headlines avoided the word fall and picked something softer. They called it cooling. Real estate agents kept smiling. "It's healthy," they said. "Markets need to breathe. You can't go up forever, but don't worry, it'll go back up." And people believed them because cooling sounds safe. Crash sounds like losing your house. Open houses didn't look the same anymore. In 2005, cars lined both sides of the street. By 2006, sometimes only 2 or 3 showed up. Same houses, same prices, less noise, more waiting. Quiet question nobody wanted to ask. If houses never go down, why did they suddenly stop going up? A lot of those cheap loans from a few years earlier were never meant to stay cheap. Millions of people had adjustable rate mortgages. Low at first, higher later. By 2006 and 2007, many of them reset. One night in Ohio, a couple opened their mail. Last year, their payment was about $900 a month. Now it said $1,500. The husband stared at it for a long time and said, "This has to be wrong." His wife whispered, "They told us it would stay low. It didn't." Nothing about the house changed. The number on the bill did. Across the country, the same sound happened. Envelopes opening, people getting quiet, forks stopping halfway to mouths. Not panic yet. Just that quiet feeling when you realize the bill doesn't care what the salesman said. And slowly, people asked the question they had avoided for years. Who signed the dream? And who's paying for it now? By late 2006, in a lot of cities, houses weren't disappearing anymore. They were stacking up. 1 for sale sign is nothing. 3 is awkward. 10 on the same street is when a neighborhood starts whispering. A man walking his dog said, "Strange, nobody's buying that one." His neighbor replied, "They're just waiting for prices to go back up." Everyone said that sentence. But the waiting kept getting longer. Phones stopped ringing. Agents started calling first. People still joked, "It's just a pause." But they said it louder than before, like volume could scare reality away. Same streets, same houses, but now, instead of dreaming, people were holding their breath. By 2007, prices weren't flying anymore. Payments were rising. Houses were sitting. People didn't feel excited. They felt uneasy, like standing in an elevator that suddenly stops between floors. Nobody screamed yet. They just looked at each other thinking, "This wasn't in the brochure. Bubbles don't usually explode first." They cough. They stutter. And people keep saying, "It's fine. It's just for now. It'll fix itself," right before they learn how expensive the word just can be. And eventually, just a pause becomes a letter in your mailbox. Spring 2008, same kitchen, same fridge hum, same family. Different envelope. It's not a love letter. It's not a coupon. It's a foreclosure notice. The kind of paper that turns your living room into a courtroom. The dad reads it twice, like the words might change. The mom doesn't read. She already knows. The kid asks, "Are we moving again?" Like moving is a normal hobby. The dream had an address. So did the bill. And one of them was about to kick the door. Outside, the old open house is back on the corner, except now it's not balloons and cookies. It's one sign. One word. Foreclosure. And when enough families get that same envelope, the story stops being personal. It becomes a system. Wall Street had taken millions of mortgages and turned them into products. Mortgage-backed securities. CDOs. Neat acronyms. Clean suits. They called it an asset. Right up until nobody wanted to touch it. Because now the question wasn't, how much is this worth? It was, who's holding the bag? Traders looked at spreadsheets like they were horror movies. Banks tried to sell. Buyers vanished. Prices fell off a cliff. It's funny, in a dark way. When times are good, everyone loves innovation. When it blows up, everyone suddenly misses boring. March 2008, Bear Stearns, a Wall Street name, gets sold for $2 a share. $2. Like a gas station snack. A company that used to act like it owned the future, suddenly priced like clearance candy. The 15th of September, 2008. Lehman Brothers collapses. A 158-year-old institution goes down, and panic doesn't walk in. It kicks the door. And while that's happening, Main Street is doing its own math. Between 2007 and 2009, about $14 trillion vanished. And millions of families watched their "we'll be fine" plan disappear with it. Not lost in theory, lost like college funds, retirements, the "we'll be fine" plan. December 2008. Home prices get hit hard enough that the Case-Shiller Index is printing nightmare headlines. And then it spreads. Jobs disappear. Not slowly, like someone pulled the plug. The U.S. loses over 8.7 million jobs in the Great Recession. And between 2007 and 2010, about 3.8 million foreclosures. That's not a housing correction. That's a neighborhood getting erased. And suddenly, everyone understands what a bubble really is. It's a party where the tab shows up and it has your name on it. October 2008, the government rolls out TARP, $700 billion to stabilize the system. And this is where the punchline turns mean. They told the public, "We have to save the banks to save everyone." Which sounds noble until you notice who's getting the lifeboats first. Because, on one side, families are getting foreclosure letters. On the other side, The system that handed out the matches is now holding the fire extinguisher and sending the invoice. So here's the question people hate, because it's too clean. If the system gets saved, who pays for the saving? And here's the one that hits closer. If your safe asset got cut in half tomorrow, would you still call it safe? Or would you call it what it really was? By the end of 2008, the bubble isn't a theory anymore. It's a locked door, a silent phone, a street full of for sale signs that don't get calls. And the scariest part, it didn't feel like a crime while it was happening. It felt like normal, right up until normal stopped paying. They said the crisis was over. But that sentence didn't change rent. It didn't change debt. And it didn't fix what people lost. Because when a crash ends on TV, it usually keeps going in real life. They said the crisis ended in 2009. But houses didn't hear that speech. From 2006 to 2012, prices kept falling. Not fast enough to shock you, just slow enough to exhaust you. In many cities, homes lost 30 to 50% of their value, which meant something simple and cruel. You could sell your house and still owe the bank money. 6 years of checking prices. 6 years of telling yourself next year. Long enough to change how you sleep. Long enough to change how you trust. One man said it like this: I didn't lose my house in one day. I lost it one quiet year at a time. By 2010, about 10 million American families had lost their homes. That's not a number. That's 10 million kitchens going dark. 10 million living rooms going silent. In Nevada, one family packed at night. No moving truck, just a borrowed van. And neighbors pretending not to see. The dad said, the bank closes at 6. We'll be gone by midnight. Banks stayed bright. Families moved in shadows. He locked the door, then unlocked it again, just to stand there one more second. Like if he waited, the house might forgive him. By 2011, Wall Street was smiling again. Bonuses came back. Stocks recovered. TV said the economy is healing, but millions were still standing in line for jobs, rent, and second chances. People noticed something strange. When banks lost, they got rescued. When people lost, they got lectures. Learn from it. Be more careful. Take responsibility. Wall Street threw a party called Recovery. Most people weren't invited. They were still cleaning up the last one. They say $7 to $8 trillion of household wealth disappeared. That's not money flying away. That's couples telling each other, we can't afford the wedding. That's kids asking why they have to leave their friends. That's people learning how to live smaller than they planned. And the weirdest part? There was no monster to blame. No movie villain. Just money cheap enough. Debt easy enough. And people tired enough to believe, this time I'm not guessing. This time, I get it. Bubbles don't need evil people. They just need normal people who want to feel safe and hate feeling left behind. If tomorrow your house doubled in price, would you stay calm? Would you ask why? Or would you just smile and say, finally, I knew I was smart? Because every bubble ends the same way. Not when people are greedy, but when they are completely sure they can't be wrong. In that moment, it always feels like success. Right before it feels like silence.